Captain Jake Martinez stared at the massive shape floating in the darkness of space. His ship New Horizon had been doing regular patrol work in the outer systems when they found it. The thing was huge, maybe 10 times bigger than any human ship he had ever seen. It looked like nothing they had built before. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Engineer Lisa Park as she looked at the readings on her screen. The numbers showed metal and strange energy signatures that their computers could not identify. Jake rubbed his chin and thought for a moment. "I don't know, Lisa, but it's not moving and it's not sending any signals. Looks dead to me." The bridge crew gathered around the main screen to get a better look. The alien ship had smooth curves and sharp edges that seemed to flow together like water. It was beautiful in a cold, strange way. But something about it felt wrong. It was too quiet, too still. Dr. Alan Brooks pushed his glasses up his nose and studied the readings. He was their best expert on alien technology, though he had never seen anything like this before. "Captain, these readings are incredible. The hull material is something we have never encountered. And look at these energy patterns. Even powered down, this ship is more advanced than anything we have." "Powered down?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir." "Whatever. This thing it's been shut off for a long time. Maybe years, maybe decades. But the structure is still intact. Whoever built this just left it here to float." Commander Rita Stone stepped forward from her station. She was Jake's second in command and had more experience with salvage operations than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, we need to board that vessel. If it's as advanced as Dr. Brooks thinks, we can't just leave it here." Jake nodded slowly. He knew she was right, but something made him nervous about the whole situation. "Any signs of life over there?" Lisa checked her instruments again. "No, sir. No heat signatures, no movement, no communications. It's like a ghost ship." "All right then. Rita, get a boarding team ready. Take Lisa and Alan with you. Full environmental suits and be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with here." An hour later, Jake watched from the bridge as the small shuttle moved toward the alien ship. The boarding team had found what looked like an airlock, though it was much larger than anything humans would build. Lisa had managed to get it open using some kind of universal connector that Dr. Brooks had designed. "We're inside, Captain," Rita's voice came through the radio. "The air is breathable, but we're keeping our suits on just in case. This place is enormous." Jake could see some of what they were seeing through the camera feeds from their helmets. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with their own light. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Brooks said over the radio. His voice was full of excitement. "We found what looks like the bridge. The technology here is beyond anything I imagined. But, Captain, everything is just sitting here. They didn't even try to take anything with them when they left." "Who left, Alan? Who built this thing?" "Based on these symbols and the ship design, I think it belongs to the Vex High Collective. We've heard rumors about them from other alien species. They're supposed to be incredibly advanced, but they hate dealing with other races." Lisa's voice joined the conversation. "Captain, I'm looking at the engineering sections. This is strange. All the main systems are perfect, but there are small failures everywhere. Things that could be fixed easily, but nobody tried. It's like they just gave up and walked away." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Vex High from traders and diplomats. They were supposed to be arrogant and saw other species as beneath them. If they had abandoned a ship this advanced, there had to be a reason. "Rita, what's your assessment?" he asked. "Captain, this ship is a treasure. The weapons systems alone are worth more than our entire fleet, but something doesn't add up. Why would anyone abandon something this valuable?" Dr. Brooks had moved to what looked like a computer terminal. The screen was dark, but when he touched it, symbols appeared. "Captain, I think I'm starting to understand. This ship didn't suffer any major damage. It looks like a series of small system failures happened over time. Instead of fixing them, the crew just shut everything down and left. That doesn't make sense, Alan. Why wouldn't they fix it?" "Maybe they couldn't, Captain. Or maybe they didn't know how. Look at this design. Everything is built to be replaced, not repaired. When something breaks, you throw it away and put in a new one. But what happens when you're far from home and you don't have replacement parts? Jake was beginning to understand. The Vex-Hi had built incredible technology, but they had never learned to adapt when things went wrong. When their perfect systems started failing, they had no choice but to abandon ship. All right, team, document everything you can and then get back here. We need to report this to Earth Command. But Rita had other ideas. Captain, with respect, we can't just leave this here. Another species might find it, or worse, pirates might strip it for parts. This ship could change everything for humanity. Jake knew she was right. The technology on that ship could advance human space travel by decades. But he also knew that Earth Command would want to study every bolt and wire before making any decisions. That could take years. Captain, Lisa said over the radio, I think we can get the basic systems running again. The power core is intact, and most of the failures are in secondary systems. Give me a few days and I might be able to bring this ship back to life. Jake made his decision. Do it, Lisa. Rita, set up a full salvage operation. We're going to bring this ship home. As the New Horizon moved closer to dock with the alien vessel, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change the course of human history. The Vex-Hi had thrown away what they saw as broken junk, but humans had always been good at taking other people's trash and turning it into treasure. The massive alien ship sat in the Titan shipyards like a sleeping giant. It had taken 3 weeks to tow it back to human space, and now the real work was about to begin. Chief Engineer Ben Clark walked around the hull, looking up at the strange metal that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. It's beautiful, he said to his assistant, and completely impossible to understand. Ben had been working with starships for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Vex-Hi ship was built using principles that human engineers had never seen before. Every system was connected to every other system in ways that made no sense. Lieutenant Amy Green sat in front of a bank of alien computers, trying to make sense of the code scrolling across the screens. She was the best computer expert in the human fleet, but these alien systems made her feel like a child trying to read an advanced mathematics book. The problem is that everything is connected, she explained to Ben. When I change one thing, it affects 10 other systems. The aliens built this ship like a single giant computer, not like separate parts working together. Ben nodded. Human ships were built differently. If the weapon system broke, you could still fly the ship. If the engines died, you could still shoot. But this alien ship was designed so that everything had to work perfectly or nothing worked at all. So what happens when something breaks? Ben asked. That's the interesting part, Amy said, pointing to lines of code on her screen. When the system detects a problem, it just shuts down that entire section. It doesn't try to work around the problem or find another way. It just gives up. Weapons specialist Carlos White was having similar problems in the ship's armory. The alien weapons were incredibly powerful, but they could only be used in very specific ways. The energy cannons could fire at 3 different power settings, and that was it. The targeting system could only aim at objects that moved in predictable patterns. It's like they built these weapons to fight enemies who follow rules, Carlos told Ben. But what happens when your enemy doesn't do what you expect? Dr. Nina Davis was working on the propulsion system and finding the same kinds of problems everywhere. The alien engines were amazing when they worked properly, but they had no backup systems. If the main power flow was interrupted, the engines would shut down completely instead of switching to emergency power. They never planned for anything to go wrong, Nina explained to the engineering team. Human ships have backup systems for their backup systems. This alien ship has one way to do everything, and if that way doesn't work, the ship is helpless. But humans were good at finding solutions to problems. Ben split his team into groups and assigned each group to study a different part of the ship. Instead of trying to understand everything at once, they focused on making small improvements. Amy started by rewriting the computer code to be more flexible. Instead of shutting down when problems occurred, she programmed the systems to try different approaches. She added what she called human thinking to the alien computers, making them more creative when solving problems. "Look at this," Amy said excitedly to Ben one morning. "I told the computer to find a way to increase weapon power, and it found 17 different solutions. The original alien programming would have said it was impossible. Carlos took a different approach with the weapons. He couldn't change how the alien energy cannons worked, but he could change how they were controlled. He installed human targeting computers that could track multiple enemies at once and predict where they would be instead of where they were. The alien weapons are like having the strongest punch in the galaxy," Carlos explained. "But the alien targeting system could only hit people standing perfectly still. Now we can hit people who are running and dodging." Nina made the biggest breakthrough with the engines. She discovered that the alien power system was incredibly efficient, but only when running at exactly the right settings. By installing human-style power regulators, she could make the engines work even when conditions weren't perfect. "The aliens built their engines like a race car," Nina told Ben. "Incredibly fast, but only on a perfect track. I'm turning them into something more like a truck that can drive anywhere." The most exciting discovery came from Sergeant Pete Johnson's security team. While exploring the ship, they found a manufacturing bay that the aliens had abandoned when a single machine broke down. The humans looked at the room and saw opportunity. "Captain, you need to see this," Pete said over the radio to Jake Martinez, who had stayed with the ship during the renovation. "This room can build almost anything, but the aliens left it behind because one small part was broken." Jake came down to look at the manufacturing bay. It was enormous, filled with machines that could shape metal and create computer chips. Pete's team had already figured out how to fix the broken machine using parts from the ship's repair kit. "Pete, this could change everything," Jake said. "If we can use this to build new parts, we can improve the ship instead of just fixing it." Over the next month, the manufacturing bay became the heart of the renovation project. Human engineers designed new parts that combined alien technology with human ideas. They created hybrid systems that were better than anything either species had built alone. Amy used the bay to build new computer processors that could think like humans but calculate like aliens. Carlos created targeting systems that were incredibly accurate but also creative enough to handle unexpected situations. Nina designed power systems that were both efficient and flexible. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Johnson realized they could use the bay to improve itself. By building better tools and machines, they could build even better parts for the ship. "We're not just fixing this ship," Dr. Johnson told the team. "We're making it evolve." Ben watched as his team worked with enthusiasm he had never seen before. They were taking alien technology that had been abandoned as junk and turning it into something incredible. Every day brought new improvements and new possibilities. "The aliens saw this ship as broken when a few systems failed," Ben said to Jake one evening as they looked out at the renovated vessel. "But we see it as a foundation to build something better." The ship that had once been abandoned as worthless was becoming something entirely new. It still looked like a Vex-High vessel from the outside, but inside it was becoming something that had never existed before, a fusion of alien advancement and human creativity. "What are we going to call her?" Jake asked. Ben smiled. "I think we should call her Retribution. The aliens threw her away, but we're going to make them regret that decision." Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the Retribution and felt the ship respond to his commands like a living thing. After 3 months of repairs and modifications, the vessel was finally ready for its first real test. The hybrid human-alien systems hummed with quiet power, and every station showed green lights. "All systems are running perfectly, Captain," reported Lisa Park from her engineering station. "The new power distribution system is working better than we hoped. We're getting 40% more efficiency than the original alien design." Jake nodded but kept his eyes on the main screen. They were conducting weapons tests in an empty system, firing at old asteroid chunks to see how well their modifications worked. So far, the results had been incredible. "Carlos, give me a full spread on Target 7, Jake ordered. Carlos White smiled as he worked the weapons controls. The targeting system locked onto a spinning asteroid and calculated its movement pattern in seconds. When he fired, the alien energy beams bent and curved through space to hit the target from 3 different angles at once. "Direct hits, Captain. The new targeting system is performing beyond specifications." Jake was about to order another test when Intelligence Officer Kate Murphy looked up from her station with worry on her face. "Captain, I'm picking up encrypted communications from Vex High Space. It looks like they're planning something big." Kate had been monitoring alien communications for weeks, trying to learn more about the species that had built their ship. Most of the messages were routine, but this one was different. "What kind of something big?" Jake asked. Kate worked quickly to decode the alien signals. "Captain, they're talking about testing new warship designs, and they're planning to test them on a human colony." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Vex High had never attacked humans before, but they had never paid much attention to humans either. If they were planning an attack, it meant they finally saw humans as worthy of their attention. "Which colony?" Jake asked quietly. "New Perth, Captain. It's a mining colony with about 50,000 people. The Vex High fleet will arrive there in 18 hours. Jake felt his heart sink. New Perth was a peaceful colony with no military defenses. The people there were farmers and miners who had never hurt anyone. They would be helpless against a Vex High attack. "How many ships are they sending?" Jake asked. Kate checked her readings again. 10 warships, Captain, all of them bigger than anything in our fleet." The crew looked at each other with worry. The Retribution was powerful, but it was just one ship. 10 Vex High warships would be enough to destroy an entire human battle group. "Captain," Commander Rita Stone said quietly, "we have to try." Jake knew she was right, but the odds were terrible. Even with all their improvements, the Retribution was still an experimental ship flying into its first real battle against overwhelming odds. "Set course for New Perth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Retribution jumped into hyperspace, Jake called his department heads together for a meeting. They had 18 hours to figure out how to fight 10 alien warships with one modified vessel. "Our advantages," Jake said, looking at each of his officers. "What do we have that they don't?" "Doctor." Brooks spoke first. "Captain, we know their technology better than they know ours. We understand how their systems work and what their weaknesses are." Amy Green added, "Our modifications make us unpredictable. Their computers will expect us to behave like a normal Vex High ship, but we won't." Carlos was more direct. "Captain, their weapons are more powerful than ours, but our targeting is much better. We can hit them where they're weak." Nina spoke up from her position. "The engine modifications give us better maneuverability. We can go places and do things that their ships can't." Jake listened to his team and felt hope growing in his chest. They might be outnumbered, but they weren't helpless. "All right, here's what we're going to do," Jake said. "We're not going to fight them like they expect. We're going to be creative." 16 hours later, the Retribution dropped out of hyperspace near New Perth. The Vex High fleet was already there, arranged in a perfect formation around the helpless colony. Jake could see on his screens that the alien ships were identical, each one following the same movement patterns. "Captain, they're hailing us," Kate reported. "Put them through." The main screen filled with the image of a Vex High commander. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and dismissive. "Human vessel, you pilot a stolen Vex High ship. Return our property, immediately or be destroyed." Jake stepped forward. "This ship was abandoned. We found it drifting in space with no crew." "Impossible. Vex High ships are never abandoned." "Then explain why it was floating dead in space for years with no power." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "That vessel was discarded as defective. It is worthless." Jake smiled. "If it's worthless, then you won't mind if we keep it." The alien's anger was obvious. You will return our property and submit to judgment for your theft, or we will take it by force." "I don't think so," Jake said. "Carlos, show them how worthless our ship is." Carlos had been waiting for this moment. He fired a single shot at the nearest HFY warship, but not at its hull. Instead, the beam struck the ship's sensor array, the part that helped it see and target enemies. The alien commander looked shocked as his ship's sensors went dark. In a normal battle, losing sensors would be a minor problem. But the retribution was no longer where the aliens expected it to be. "All ships, destroy the thieves," the commander ordered. The battle began with 10 HFY warships firing at the space where the retribution had been a moment before. But Commander Tony Bell, leading the ship's fighter squadron, had already moved the ship to a new position using maneuvers that would have been impossible with the original alien systems. "Captain, their formation is too rigid," Tony reported. "They're getting in each other's way trying to target us." Jake watched as the alien ships struggled to adapt to the Retribution's unpredictable movements. Their powerful weapons kept hitting empty space while the human ship danced between their shots. "Carlos, target their communication arrays. Let's see how well they coordinate without being able to talk to each other." One by one, the Retribution struck at the alien ship's weak points. Instead of trying to destroy them with brute force, the humans used precision and creativity. They disabled weapons, blinded sensors, and cut communications. The HFY commander's perfect formation began to fall apart as his ships lost the ability to work together effectively. Some ships fired at shadows, while others held their fire, afraid of hitting their allies. "Captain," Amy reported excitedly, "their tactical computer is trying to predict our movements, but it can't understand what we're doing. We're acting outside of its programming." Jake smiled as he watched the battle unfold. The aliens had superior firepower and more ships, but they were losing because they couldn't adapt to an enemy that refused to follow their rules. The final moment came when the Retribution used a maneuver that no HFY ship could have attempted. Nina overcharged the engines beyond their safety limits, while Carlos fired at maximum power. The ship shot past the alien formation and struck the command vessel from behind, disabling its main weapons. "This is impossible," the alien commander transmitted as his flagship lost power. "No," Jake replied. "This is human." News of the victory at New Perth spread across human space faster than any ship could travel. In bars and meeting halls, in government offices and military bases, people talked about the impossible battle where one human ship had defeated 10 alien warships. Captain Jake Martinez found himself famous, but he knew the real story was more complicated. "Admiral Foster wants to see you," Commander Rita Stone told Jake as he stood in his quarters aboard the Retribution. "She's flying out here personally to inspect the ship." Jake nodded. He had expected this. Admiral Grace Foster commanded the entire human fleet, and she would want to understand how they had achieved such an impossible victory. 2 days later, Admiral Foster arrived with a fleet of human ships and a team of the best engineers and scientists that Earth could provide. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Captain Martinez," she said, as she stepped aboard the Retribution, "I've read your battle reports, but I need to see this ship for myself." Jake gave her a complete tour, showing her all the modifications that his team had made. Admiral Foster asked detailed questions about every system, every improvement, every change from the original alien design. "This is remarkable work," she said as they stood in the engineering section. "But I need to know if we can do this again. Can we take these improvements and apply them to our own ships?" Dr. Brooks, who had joined the tour, shook his head. "Admiral, that's the problem. Many of these improvements only work because we have the alien power core and hull materials. Our own ships don't have the foundation to support these systems." "Admiral," Foster frowned, "so we can't build more ships like this one?" "Not exactly like this one," Ben Clark said. "But we can take the principles and adapt them to human designs. We can make our ships more flexible, more creative, more adaptable. Admiral Foster spent 3 days studying every aspect of the Retribution. She talked to every member of the crew, examined every modification, and tested every system. When she was finished, she called Jake to a private meeting. "Captain, I'm authorizing a crash program to upgrade our entire fleet using your innovations. But I need this ship and your crew to lead the effort." "What kind of effort, Admiral?" "Intelligence reports indicate that the Vex-High are not happy about their defeat. They're calling what happened at New Perth impossible and demanding that we return their stolen property. When we refused, they declared war." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "How many ships are they sending?" "According to our sources, war leader Zektar is bringing nearly a third of the entire Vex-High fleet. Over 300 ships, Captain, the largest alien armada ever assembled." The number was staggering. The entire human fleet had less than 200 ships, and most of them were smaller than a single Vex-High warship. "Why so many ships for one battle?" Jake asked. "Because they can't accept that they lost to inferior beings. To them, humans are primitive creatures who should be grateful for their attention. The fact that we defeated them using their own abandoned technology is an insult they can't ignore." Admiral Foster pulled up a star chart showing the route the Vex-High fleet would take. "They'll arrive at the Kepler system in 6 weeks. That's where we'll make our stand." "Admiral, even with improvements, our fleet can't handle 300 enemy ships." "You're right, Captain, but your ship can." Jake stared at her. "One ship against 300? Admiral, that's suicide." "Not one ship, Captain, one fleet killer." Over the next month, the Retribution underwent even more modifications. The manufacturing bay worked day and night to create new weapons, better shields, and more efficient systems. Every human ship that could be spared was sent to help with the upgrades. Dr. Sam Johnson, a scientist who had joined the project, made a breakthrough that changed everything. While studying the alien technology, he discovered a critical flaw in Vex-High ship design. "Captain, look at this," Dr. Johnson said, showing Jake a detailed scan of a Vex-High warship. "Their ships are optimized for maximum performance, but they have no redundancy. When something breaks, the whole system fails. What does that mean for us? It means that if we can cause the right kind of damage, their ships won't just be disabled. They'll destroy themselves." Dr. Johnson explained that the Vex-High power systems were so efficient that they had no safety margins. If the power flow was disrupted in the right way, the ship's own energy would tear it apart from the inside. Amy Green worked with Dr. Johnson to develop a new weapon that could exploit this weakness. Instead of trying to break through the aliens' strong shields, they created a beam that would pass through the shields and disrupt the power systems directly. "It's like the difference between breaking down a door and picking the lock," Amy explained. "We're not trying to overpower their defenses. We're finding a way around them." Carlos integrated the new weapon into the ship's existing systems, but he also prepared something special. Using the manufacturing bay, he created dozens of modified mining drones that could be launched like missiles but would behave like small attack ships. "The aliens will expect us to fight like a warship," Carlos said, "but we're going to fight like a swarm of angry bees." Nina made the most dramatic modification to the engines. By installing human-designed power regulators throughout the ship, she created what she called adaptive propulsion. The ship could now change its performance characteristics in real time, becoming faster or more maneuverable as needed. "Captain, we're not just flying a ship anymore," Nina explained. "We're flying a ship that can become whatever kind of ship we need it to be." As the Retribution prepared for the coming battle, Jake looked at his crew and realized they had changed. As much as their ship, they were no longer just human officers flying an alien vessel. They had become something new, a fusion of human creativity and alien technology. "Admiral Foster, we're as ready as we'll ever be," Jake reported. "Good, Captain, because our scouts report that war leader Zektar's fleet has entered human space. They'll reach Kepler in 48 hours. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about what was coming. The Vex High were bringing 300 ships to fight one. They expected an easy victory against primitive humans flying stolen technology. They were about to learn that humans had a talent for turning other people's trash into deadly weapons. The ship the aliens had abandoned as worthless junk was about to become their worst nightmare. "Set course for Kepler," Jake ordered. "It's time to show them what a real fleet killer can do." The Kepler system looked like a graveyard of broken worlds. Shattered asteroids floated in twisted patterns around a dying star, creating a maze of rocks and radiation that would challenge any pilot. Captain Jake Martinez had chosen this battlefield, carefully, knowing that the terrain would favor creativity over raw firepower. War leader Zektar's armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 300 Vex-High warships arranged in geometric precision. Each vessel was identical to its neighbors, following predetermined flight paths with mechanical accuracy. The alien commander had brought overwhelming force to crush what he saw as a human insult to Vex-High superiority. "There," Zektar pointed at his tactical display as the lone human ship appeared on sensors. "The stolen vessel. Today we reclaim our property and teach these primitives their place." But the retribution was no longer the ship the aliens remembered. As it moved through the asteroid field, it seemed to flow like liquid metal, changing course and speed in ways that defied conventional physics. The modifications made by human engineers had transformed it into something entirely new. "Captain, they're trying to surround us," reported Commander Tony Bell from the pilot station. "Standard Vex-High tactics. They want to trap us in a crossfire." Jake smiled grimly. "Let them try, Tony. Take us deeper into the asteroids. Make them follow us into our kind of fight." The Retribution dove into the maze of floating rocks, using its enhanced maneuverability to navigate passages too narrow for the rigid alien formation. The Vex-High ships, designed for open space combat, struggled to maintain their perfect lines as they pursued their quarry. "Sir, they're breaking formation," observed Intelligence Officer Kate Murphy. "Some ships are falling behind because they can't match our movements." "Good. Now let's see how well they coordinate when we start picking them off." Engineer Rachel Kim watched her displays with fascination. The ship's systems were performing beyond all expectations, but more than that, they were learning. Each maneuver, each stress test, each moment of combat was teaching the hybrid technology new ways to function. "Captain, the adaptive systems are evolving in real time," Rachel reported. "The ship is literally getting better at being a ship as we fight." This was something the static Vex-High technology could never match. Their ships were built to precise specifications and operated within narrow parameters. But the Retribution had been designed by humans to grow and adapt, to become more than the sum of its parts. Pilot Steve Adams led the first attack run, using tactics that would have been impossible with the original alien design. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, he threaded the Retribution between asteroids at impossible angles, striking at individual ships before disappearing back into the rock maze. "Target their power distribution nodes," Jake ordered. "Let's see what happens when their perfect systems start failing." Carlos White had been waiting for this moment. His new weapons didn't try to overpower the alien shields. Instead, they slipped through like ghosts, targeting the critical systems that Dr. Johnson had identified as vulnerable. The first Vex-High ship to suffer a power disruption went dark for only a moment before its own energy tore it apart. The explosion lit up the asteroid field as the vessel destroyed itself with its own efficiency. "Impossible!" War leader Zektar snarled as he watched his ship vanish. "No weapon can penetrate our shields." But the humans weren't using conventional weapons. They were exploiting the very perfection that the Vex-High prized so highly. Each alien ship was a masterpiece of engineering, but masterpieces were fragile when subjected to forces they weren't designed to handle. Communications Officer Diana Ross had been working on something special during the approach to battle. Using modified alien protocols, she had found a way to access the Vex-High fleet network. The aliens' rigid security systems, designed to prevent unauthorized access, couldn't adapt fast enough to stop her hybrid intrusion methods. "Captain, I'm inside their communications grid," Diana announced with excitement. "Their security is like a lock that only opens one way, but we have a key that changes shape." "What can you do with it?" "I can see their tactical plans, disrupt their coordination, maybe even turn their own systems against them." Jake nodded. "Do it." As the battle continued, the retribution seemed to be everywhere at once. It would appear from behind an asteroid to strike at an enemy ship, then vanish before the aliens could return fire. Each attack was precise, targeting the weak points that human engineers had discovered in their own ship's original design. But the real turning point came when the adaptive systems reached a critical threshold. The ship's hybrid technology had learned enough from combat to begin making its own improvements. Systems that had been running at human-designed efficiency suddenly jumped to performance levels that neither species had achieved alone. "Captain, you need to see this," Rachel called out from her station. "The power output just increased by 30%, but I didn't change anything. The ship is optimizing itself." Jake realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The retribution was evolving during battle, becoming more efficient with each engagement. It was learning not just how to survive, but how to excel. War leader Zektar watched his perfect fleet being torn apart by a single enemy vessel and felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. His ships were more powerful, his weapons more advanced, his numbers overwhelming. But the human ship fought with a creativity that his rigid tactics couldn't counter. "All ships, close formation," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on the target." But, even as his ships tried to regroup, the retribution was already adapting to his new strategy. Amy Green had programmed the ship's computers with human-style flexible thinking, and they were now predicting alien tactics faster than the aliens could implement them. "Captain, they're trying to box us in," Amy reported. "But I can see 17 different ways to escape their trap." "Pick the one they'll least expect," Jake ordered. The retribution suddenly accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation, using an engine overload that should have been impossible. As Vex-High ships scrambled to avoid collision, the human ship unleashed a barrage of modified mining drones that behaved like a swarm of intelligent missiles. Each drone was small and weak compared to a Vex-High warship, but they moved with unpredictable patterns that the alien targeting systems couldn't track. Like insects attacking a giant, they swarmed over the enemy ships, striking at sensors, weapons, and communication arrays. The perfect Vex-High formation dissolved into chaos as ships lost the ability to see, communicate, and coordinate. Individual vessels found themselves fighting alone against an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. "This cannot be happening," Zektar transmitted to his fleet. "They are primitives flying our discarded refuse." "No," Jake replied, his voice carrying, "across all frequencies. We're humans flying the future you were too afraid to build." The final phase of the battle was more execution than combat. One by one, the Vex-High ships fell victim to their own perfection. Their efficient systems, disrupted by human weapons, tore themselves apart. Their rigid tactics, countered by adaptive strategies, left them helpless against an enemy they couldn't understand. When the last alien ship went dark, floating powerless among the asteroids, the Kepler system fell silent, except for the hum of the Retribution's hybrid engines. "Damage report," Jake ordered. "Minor hull scoring, Captain," Rachel reported. "All systems operating above normal parameters. If anything, we're in better condition now than when we started." Jake looked out at the field of disabled enemy ships and realized they had achieved something impossible. Not only had they survived a battle against overwhelming odds, but they had proven that human adaptability could triumph over alien superiority. "Open a channel to War Leader Zektar's ship," Jake ordered. The alien commander's image appeared on screen, his perfect features marred by disbelief and rage. "This victory means nothing, human." You have only delayed your species' inevitable subjugation. I don't think so, Jake replied calmly. Today you learned that superior technology means nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. You threw away what you saw as broken junk. We turned it into the foundation of our future. As the Retribution moved through the wreckage of the alien fleet, Jake reflected on how far they had all come. The ship that had started as abandoned trash was now something entirely new, a fusion of alien advancement and human creativity that was greater than either could have achieved alone. The Vex High had built a perfect vessel and discarded it when perfection proved fragile. Humans had taken that discarded dream and transformed it into something that could grow, adapt, and evolve. Standing on the bridge of the ship that had become humanity's greatest achievement, Captain Jake Martinez looked out at the stars and knew that his species had taken its first step toward a future where they would never again be seen as primitive or weak. The Fleet Killer had been born from alien arrogance and human determination. Now it would carry humanity forward into whatever challenges awaited among the stars.